I guess it would help if I put myself on the stage, wouldn't it? Hey, everybody. Sorry about the blackout time at the beginning of this. I'm live hopping. Just got off the Cake Fest collaboration giveaway, which was a lot of fun. How's everybody doing? Hey, Marianne. Hey, Anne. Hey, Heather. Thank you all so much for coming. And thank you to anybody who is watching the replay. Hey, Wendy. I was late too. You're good. You're good. Good to see you all. So last week when we had our study hall, I'd mentioned I was going to do tonifying herbs, but my brain was really stuck on nervines, and I really, really wanted to do a deeper dive into nervines. So that's what I did. And midway, I started nerding out on stress and the impact on the body and what happens with all of that. We'll see how much of that I share. I don't want to get too far off topic, but tonight's topic is going to be more about nervines, and we're going to talk about herbs for stress and herbs for sleep. Hey, Mickey, good to see you. Thank you for coming on over. So my plan is to chat a little bit about what stress is, how it impacts the body. And then I want to talk about nervines, and I'm going to do a brief recap on what we mean by relaxing herbs. Hey, Lori's World. And hey there, staff. Good to see you guys. Thank you for coming. So we're going to do a little bit of a recap on what we consider relaxing herbs and the nervines that fall into the different categories. And then I'm going to kind of take a shift from that, and we're going to chat more about the nervines. We're going to talk about some tonifying nervines. So I did stay true to talking about tonifying herbs in that regard. We will chat more about tonifying herbs next week because there's lots of different categories of tonifying herbs. The only tonifying herb we're going to talk about today is the nervine tonics. But I'm going to be talking about even more than that. So I hope y'all are looking forward to it. It's been a lot of fun for me to get all of my notes together, and I just have pages, and I really nerded out. I had to adjust the borders on my pages so that all of my stuff could fit without being like a gazillion pages long. But for anybody that's new here, hey, Christine, good to see you. For anyone that's new here, my name's Tammy. I am Mountain Grandma, and welcome to my channel. I've been studying herbs for over 20 years, and one of the things that led me to this was my degree in biomedical engineering and my experience in clinical research. That's my day job is clinical research, which I've also been doing for about 20 or 20 plus years, almost at the same time I started studying herbs. And you might say, that's interesting. Why do you think that is? Because I was on the inside seeing how, the whole clinical research of the pharmaceutical medications takes place and all that good stuff. So that opened my eyes and led me down this herbal path a little more seriously. And I'm currently attending a school trying to work towards getting my registered herbalist designation. So I'm taking lots of notes, lots of really detailed notes. The information I share here with you guys, some of it is stuff I've already had exposure to, but sharing it with you is just another step in the learning process. And it just helps me to get better and smarter, and it helps me get all my notes together. And at some point, for anybody who is a member, I'm not sure how I'm going to do this yet, but I'm wanting to prepare my notes and get them all pulled together into like a little book or something, or maybe sell them, make them available, give them to people who are members, something along those lines. So that's my goal. That's what this is all about. Every week, I'm going to be sharing an herbal concept. We'll be talking about an herb of the week. I'm creating like monograph after monograph, and these are from me because I want them. And my advice to anybody who's studying herbs or just getting started, start working on your monographs now. I did not do that. I'm just now getting all my monographs together. And if I would have started years ago, my goodness, I'd have, 100. over 100 herbs that I already have a monograph for. So anyways, that's another thing that we do. And ways you can participate is by, communicating with each other and myself in the chat. You can leave a comment, give me a thumbs up if you could. Subscribe, ring the bell so that you're notified of any future videos, because I'll share sometimes videos that coincide or kind of go along with what I'm talking about for the Herbal Study Hall. All right. So now let me go ahead and share my disclaimer before we get started. Just a quick reminder, this live is for educational purposes only. I'm not a medical professional, and nothing shared here is meant to diagnose, treat, or replace medical advice from a qualified healthcare provider. Herbalism can be supportive to everyone's system, but we're all unique. Everybody's body and health history is different. So make sure that you're speaking with your doctor or another licensed healthcare professional before trying new herbs, especially if you're pregnant, nursing, taking other medications, and managing a chronic medical condition. This space is about learning, exploring traditions, and understanding plants, not giving personal medical advice. All right. Now, with that being said, it's tea time. So we can go ahead and get started. Does everybody want to tell me, anybody else here having tea tonight? And what do you have in your cup? I want to share my little cup. It says, "There's an herb for that." Don't you love this? I was gifted this and I just love this cup. Tonight, I'm drinking lemon balm. It's been a busy week and a long day, so lemon balm's a nice one for me, especially because I do any pharmaceutical, all holistic. That's awesome, Wendy. All right. And I might do that. This is the first step, because one thing that I have found, and at the end of this live, I'm also going to share with you guys what is my source. And I think that's something everybody needs to ask themselves whenever they're watching anybody speak about herbs, herbal medicine, or anything like that. Where they get, honestly, when they talk about anything, where are they getting their information from? Can you go to the source? And I will share with you my source, because I want you all to be able to see that. All righty, so let's jump into it. We're going to talk about herbs for stress and sleep. And the truth is, if people want to get healthier, there are some top high-level things that you can do to do that. And one of those is manage your stress, make sure you're getting rest, and manage your gut health. And we're not going to go into all of that, but we are going to chat about stress and sleep tonight by taking a deeper dive into nervines. So what is stress? Oh, hey there, Miss Vine on the other side. Thank you for coming. Stress isn't necessarily what happens to us, right? When we talk about stress, we're not talking about what happens to us. We're talking about how our body's responding to what happens to us. Because we have to remember that our body is designed to try to maintain homeostasis at all times, right? So when we get hit with stress, it could come from a lot of places. It can come from environmental change. That means, extreme cold, extreme heat, or maybe just a subtle change if we're sensitive to those changes. It can mean barometric pressure. Anybody here ever get a barometric pressure headache? It could mean EMFs, ionizing radiation. We're talking about cell phone use, computer use, and stuff like that. It could mean noise. You could be in the kitchen trying to cook something, and maybe you've got your kids, mom, or grandma, and then you've got the TV going, and then you've got, something else happening over here. All of these outside noises. That's stressful. Even if you don't feel stress, your body's having to manage a lot of different input, we'll call it. Yep. True, Lori. Bad stress and good stress, but it's all stress. It could be biological. So it could be bacteria, it could be fungi, it could be viruses. So those are like your biological stressors. Other stressors that you might experience. Oh, look at excitement is as stressful as dread. Exactly. It could be chemicals. It could be pesticides. It could be the coating on your cookware. It could be smoke, tobacco smoke. It could be your medications that you're prescribed. It could be dust. It could be xenoestrogens. In other words, what plastic turns into, or those chemicals that mimic estrogen, like water bottles. That would be an example of that. It could be nutritional, food allergies, maybe even if you ate too much or if you're eating too little. Seed oils, artificial preservatives, food coloring. These are all stresses on our body. It could be physical. So that would be like your medical indications, chronic illnesses, high blood pressure. If you work out, like really strenuous exercise, something like that, lack of oxygen. If, you're the type of person who holds their breath a lot, or maybe at nighttime you get the sleep apnea from lack of oxygen, it could be that. Sleep deprivation, not getting enough sleep, which is one of the reasons we're talking about all this. Illness, infection, chronic overstimulation. Anybody who is ADHD or is, not diagnosed, but has friends that tell them that they are. Maybe you fall into that chronic overstimulation category. And it could be psychological. And this is kind of pretty much the last one. Depression, anger, fear, grief, loss, mental illness, major life changes that you're having a hard time tackling, mental trauma, or just overwhelming responsibility. Are you, Christine? I am not, but I have friends that are, and they're like, you. Anybody got 2 drinks sitting on their table? Apparently that's a sign. But anyhow, we're some really productive folks, I think, as long as we reel ourselves in and focus. So anyways, those are all of the ways. Those are all examples of stress. And what it comes down to is, how does your body manage that stress? And I don't know how much in the weeds I should go into this. We could talk high level and move on to the herbs, or I could dig a little bit into this and bring the herbs in. Are you guys interested in hearing about what the HPA axis and the SAS is? SAS stands for sympathoadrenal system. And I can save this for another time because I want to talk about adaptogens in the future, and we could chat more about this then. I just couldn't stop myself. It's in my notes. So tell me, 1, if you want to hear about the science behind how stress impacts your body, or 2, if you want me to give you the shortcut version. And remember, I can always come back to this later. Okay, I see Christine saying she's interested. Okay. All right. Lori wants to hear it too. Anne says, let's just keep it brief. Anyone else want to vote? Miss Vi on the side, because I can do a little high level now and go into a little more depth later. 2 would be a little high level, like, not going too far into the weeds. All right. Gosh, you guys are making it tough on me. It's 50-50. I know. It's tied. All right, let me start in here. So stress is managed by our bodies in 2 ways. One of those is the HPA axis. It's the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and the SAS, the sympathoadrenal system. And you might say, well, what is your hypothalamus and what's your pituitary? Those are both in your brain, and they're connected. Like, the pituitary hangs down beneath the hypothalamus in your brain. And they communicate with each other that way. But your hypothalamus is like, he's like the, he's the CEO, and he's telling your body basically what to do to maintain balance in your body, in your biological system here. And it's basically the switchboard, right? You're the keeper of homeostasis. And it does this by regulating body temperature, the fluids in your body, electrolytes, and even your body weight. It controls every endocrine gland in the body. The hypothalamus does. So it's got a big job. It also directs the fight or flight response by secreting endocrine signals to the pituitary and the adrenal glands. Pituitary is also in your noggin, and then your adrenal glands. We'll talk about those in just a minute. It also does this by sending neural signals to the sympathetic nervous system. So basically, when your hypothalamus is triggered, It let two different systems know, hey, we have an emergency here. You guys need to do something. So then you've got your fight or flight being triggered by two different mechanisms. So that pituitary that's in there, it's considered a master gland, and it's considered a master gland because it's the regulator of so many functions in your body. And what you need to know about the pituitary gland is it's kind of broken into lobes. It's got a front part and a back part. The back part we call the anterior lobe. The front part we call posterior. And that's just medical terminology for you. But the anterior part regulates the activity of the thyroid, adrenal glands, and your reproductive glands. That's the anterior part. The posterior part, which is in the front, secretes two hormones, oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone, also called vasopressin. So if you're on some certain medications also trigger that vasopressin. So that's just kind of good knowledge to have. Now, what do your adrenals do? Remember, we've got hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis. The adrenal glands are located on the top of each of your kidneys. And when you talk about your adrenal glands, you talk about a cortex and a medulla. It's not hard though, guys. The cortex is just the name they give to the outside of it. It's like a real thick layer, right? And the medulla is just the squishy part on the inside, but it's more than squishy. It does stuff in there. That's your adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands respond to stress by stimulating your sympathetic nervous system and producing hormones for adrenaline, which are epinephrine and norepinephrine. So that's what your adrenal glands do, right? So there's your HPA axis. Hypothalamus triggers your releasing of certain things, and it's going to hit HPA axis and the SAF. Are we doing good? Are you all following me? Does this make sense? Before I go too much into the weeds, I know I'm talking quickly. You can go back and re-listen if you'd like. Yes, and absolutely. All over this. Okay. So the sympathetic, remember when you talk about your sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, you've actually got two. So your sympathetic is your active sympathetic system. It's your active nervous system when you're under stress. And it includes nerve cells that are involved in the fight or flight response. Your parasympathetic system, that's the system, your nervous system, that keeps your body breathing and does all of the things, your gastric juices flowing, everything that your body needs to do without you thinking about doing it. That's what your parasympathetic nervous system does. It maintains homeostasis and bodily functions without conscious thought. Now, your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system are always trying to stay balanced. Therefore, if your sympathetic nervous system that responds to stress goes up, you're going to see changes happen in your parasympathetic nervous system. For example, if you're under a lot of stress or all of a sudden stressed, it's going to decrease your digestive function. And under severe stress, men will stop producing sperm and hair. Women will stop producing reproductive hormones and they will start to store fat. All the women here, are we hearing this? Stress makes us fat. And it does it because that's what the parasympathetic nervous system's response is to a sympathetic nervous system overstimulated. Okay, so that's what you need to know about that. Now, when the hypothalamus, I want to kind of break it down to what the hormones are being excreted and all this stuff. And it comes down to just a couple of main hormones. Do you want me to skip this part and go to the main hormones, or do you guys want to hear it? One for yes, or two, skip this part and just go to the main hormones. Let me know. I want to make sure I'm not losing anybody and you all are actually interested. I'm a nerd. I'm interested, but I already did my research. If you want me to share it with you, I'm happy to do that. I can also just keep it in my notes and I can give you the simplified version of the hormones. Oh, that makes me feel good, Anne. Thank you. Okay. All right. Deep breath, because sometimes I get excited and start talking real fast. Okay. When the hypothalamus becomes aware that a stress is present, basically picture this thing in your brain, like that one cartoon, and there's somebody in there with an alarm bell. So your hypothalamus starts hitting this alarm bell, picture like sirens going off. Whoa, we got stress. We need to deal with this. So the hypothalamus is going to release corticotropin. And this is a hormone. They call it CRH for short. This corticotropin travels to your pituitary gland, and they're connected by like a stalk. So picture it like a fireman jumping down a thing, right? Jumping down a pole. That's what the corticotropin does. It jumps down that pole. It hits the pituitary gland, and when the pituitary gland receives that, it releases ACTH, which stands for adrenocorticotropic hormone. This hormone gets shot directly over to your adrenal cortex. Remember, that's just the outside of your adrenal gland. And the adrenal cortex has receptors on it. So it binds right in there to the adrenal cortex, and then it triggers the adrenals to release glucocorticoids, which is primarily, for anybody who might have guessed this, cortisol. Okay, that's your cortisol. So there's your HPA hormone pathway that I just shared with you in a nutshell. Now let's talk about the SAS, right? Remember, that's the sympathetic, it's a really long word, guys. It is the sympathoadrenal system, the SAS. So when the hypothalamus rings that bell and it gets the HPA axis going, at the same time, it stimulates the sympathetic nervous system. When it does that, the sympathetic nervous system stimulates the adrenal glands. And when the adrenal glands get stimulated by them, they release okay, I don't know if I can spell this, catecholamines. I think that's how you say it, catecholamines. And that includes adrenaline, epinephrine, which is epinephrine, and your noradrenaline, which is norepinephrine. These get released into the bloodstream. This is fight or flight that's happening, okay? That's a fight or flight response. So the catecholamines, which are basically epinephrine and norepinephrine, and the glucocorticoids, which is cortisol, right? Those three people, well, I don't know if they're not people unless you make them a cartoon character, but you know what I'm saying. Those three things basically result in a variety of bodily responses that hit us both physically, biologically, chemically within our body, and behaviorally. Like maybe don't ask us to do anything. We're doing something else. We're already stressed out. Bad things could happen. So basically, that's the main hormones that get triggered. So if we think about that, we've got the ACTH corticotropin that's released from the anterior part of the pituitary gland. And that hormone's specific function is to stimulate the growth and secretions of the adrenal cortex. So that's its job. And also ACTH increases with stress. It increases with disease. And it will increase with decreased blood pressure because it's recognizing something needs to be done. Epinephrine and norepinephrine, those cause an increase in blood pressure, heart rate, and they also constrict small blood vessels. So cortisol, y'all with me? Everybody want to hit a 1 if you're getting this? Thank you, Anne. So cortisol, also known as the stress hormone, released from the adrenal glands, has the greatest impact of all of these guys. And the result is regulation of, if we're talking about, a normal cortisol response, because cortisol isn't always a bad guy. Sometimes cortisol has important things to do, like regulating our blood pressure and cardiovascular function, helping the immune system to respond to infection and inflammation. But if it gets out of hand, right, if we have too much cortisol being excreted into our bodies, into our bloodstreams, here's what happens. It breaks down muscle protein. It breaks your muscle down. which causes a release of amino acids in the bloodstream. You know, it takes amino acids to build muscle. So guess what? The body's way of breaking down your muscle releases those amino acids into the bloodstream. And when they get released in that stressed out state, your body uses those, the liver in particular, uses those amino acids to synthesize as glucose for energy. All right, that's called gluconeogenesis. This results in a raise in blood sugar for the brain energy. And that also results in other body tissues decreasing their use of glucose for fuel. Okay. So all of this happens, and what it does is, are you recognizing that the impact of stress is certain activities in our body are taken in order to increase our brain knowledge, like what's going on, so we can be quick on our feet, and so that our feet can be quick on their feet, right? So it wants your body to move and your mind to move. But when it does those things, it shuts down other activities that we normally do. So when cortisol is high, it also releases, there's a release of fatty acid for use by the muscles. So there's to get your body going. It releases fatty acids for use by the muscles. And another important thing to note about cortisol, it's normally highest in somebody who doesn't have chronic stress at 6 to 8 a.m. in the morning, and it's normally lowest at midnight. So if you're wide awake at midnight, chances are your cortisol is maybe a little bit out of whack. Excess cortisol suppresses immune function. It interferes with your sleep. It interferes with your digestion. It interferes with your sex hormone balance, and it interferes with your body's circulation. So some symptoms of excess cortisol include anxiety, hypertension, sex hormone imbalance, insulin resistance, obesity, osteoporosis, insomnia, and polycystic ovarian syndrome for any women, right? So I wanted to share this because I feel like chatting about what stress is kind of helpful as we start talking about nervines. And later, probably in about 2 study halls, I'm going to backtrack and talk about adaptogens so we can talk about stress. Because like I said, if we want to get healthy and be our best, or help our patients be their best, whether that patient is your child, your sister, your brother, your husband, your mother, father, whatever, we need to recognize that for anybody to be healthy, they need to be able to manage their stress. They need to be able to sleep well, and they need to be able to have healthy digestive function. Yeah, it's a lot of things. So we're talking about, with the nervines, we're talking about how those can help us to manage stress. And adaptogens are your really big hitters, but we're not going to talk about those. Though some of these nervines they're also adaptogens. All right, I will take a breath. Does anybody have any questions? It is a lot of things, Heather. Oh, Wendy, that's dangerous to not sleep hardly at all. There's a lot of studies that have shown how important it is for you to sleep. And as a matter of fact, I read in one place while I was doing this research, in 1910, the average person slept 9 hours a night. And if that's the truth of what is normal, then a lot of people have their sleep being compromised more than what we even think they are. If that makes sense. All right. So remember, we started talking about nervines and relaxing herbs because we took a dive down the path of herbal energetics. We had hot, cold herbs. We had moist and dry herbs. We had relaxing and tonifying herbs. And we've taken an extended pit stop on the relaxing herbs. So that's why we're talking about these nervines. Also, just as a reminder, relaxing herbs can also be surface releasing herbs that relax the surface tension of your skin to open the pores to promote sweating. And they're not all hot. They can be cooling, and those are called diaphoretics. They can be those. Relaxing herbs can also be demulcent herbs that are moistening. You use them to treat like taut, dry, inflamed tissue, and it is very relaxing, right? Relaxing herbs could also include our antispasmodic herbs that help to treat spasmodic coughs, menstrual cramps, muscle spasms, gallbladder attacks, headaches, those kinds of things. I'm reminding you all of this because if you want to get a good night's sleep, you need to try to focus on what's keeping you up in the first place. I'm drinking lemon balm tea tonight, man. I love lemon balm tea. A nervine. So, nervines, here we go, guys, is an herb that supports, soothes, or nourishes the nervous system so you feel more relaxed and balanced. They are nerve tonics. They help relieve anxiety, mild sleeplessness, irritability, and they could also be your sedatives that are more than a tonic. They're a sedative nervine that helps you to sleep. They could also help with white coat hypertension and cardiovascular or gastrointestinal tract symptoms that are worsened by stress. See, doesn't this feel like a beginning? Like if we're going to talk about being able to sleep and making our gut health better, we have to take a pit stop and chat about stress because stress is going to impact all the things that nervines can help to make you a little more resilient with. I do want to make one little comment on white coat hypertension, and that is this. White coat hypertension is an indicator that when you experience stress, your blood pressure goes up. And maybe it goes up more than the normal person. So sometimes when you think about nervines, and what time is it? 7:30. Okay. Trying to keep myself on task, guys. I got so much to say. But I want to take a breath every now and then, get a drink, and give you guys an opportunity to ask questions. Wendy, would I? Oh, you need to sleep. Okay. You might need to text me. We might need to talk about that a little more. All right. There's 5 types of nervines. We talked about this last time. The tonifying, which is like strengthening or nourishing. Oat straw, one of my favorite ones. Stimulants that are uplifting, like lemon balm, peppermint, they uplift you. They, lift your spirit, you could say. Calming, like lavender, chamomile. And then you've got your sedatives, passion flower. Christine, I hear you. I'm like walking white coat syndrome. Using the right nervine is important, and I do want to point that out. And it's most appropriate based on what type of nervine it is. Remember, there's 5 types of nervines. And then also there is some connection between body parts and nerves. So we call that herbs having an affinity, kind of like, carrots have an affinity for your eyes, right? And we know that there's different foods that have different affinities for different parts of the body. Well, herbs are the same way. So I want to point out, we went on that whole spill about the HPA axis, and we talked about stress and all of that. I do want to point out, cortisol is regulated by the HPA axis, right? It's part of the whole SAS and HPA thing, as well as the epinephrine and the norepinephrine. Nervines don't directly turn those down. But what they do is they shift the inputs that tell the HP axis whether or not you're stressed. That's what they do. Does that make sense? Okay. So moving on from that, I want to talk about each of those different kinds of nervines and about how those are directly connected to the perceived stress load. Are y'all ready? Can you drop me a 1 in the chat if this is flowing well for you? Okay. So nervines don't directly control the cortisol. But what they're doing is in an indirect way, because the only thing that directly controls your cortisol is your HPA axis and your SAS kind of working together on that. Cortisol, epinephrine, and norepinephrine, right? And ACTH. Remember, those are like your hormones that are involved. Your nervines do not dictate whether or not, don't dictate the release or the hold on those, like maybe a pharmaceutical would, Christine. Think of like your blockers, your beta blockers, or your angiotensive converting enzymes that are blocking receptors. They're not doing anything like that. I'm speaking medical terms with you because I know you know what that is. I know you're like me. We've been in the clinical world a long time. Yes, they aren't doing that. They aren't blocking any receptors or anything like that. But what they're doing is, yep, I'm going to talk about Skullcap, Ann. Thanks for keeping me on task. But what they're doing is they are helping your HPA to not set off the alarm bell. That is what your nervines are doing. It's basically indirectly impacting all of your stress hormones by not getting that alarm bell to be set off. So calming nervines reduce the perceived stress load, and they help the body shift out of sympathetic overdrive. So when the nervous system softens, the HPA axis follows with a gentler cortisol output. So it's reducing the triggers that keep cortisol elevated, right? Tonifying herbs support resilience and HPA regulation. And that means they're nourishing and stabilizing your nerves so that they're stronger. Sedative herbs indirectly lower cortisol in the nighttime, because if they can improve your sleep onset and how deep of a sleep you get, then the sedative nervines help restore the natural cortisol curve. Now your stimulant nervines, the ones that are uplifting, they brighten the mind, they don't stress the body, but they're kind of impactful without raising your cortisol. So those are kind of nice. So nervines don't control cortisol. They just help the nervous system to basically feel safer and prevent that HPA axis from setting off the alarm bell. All right. Whew. All right. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking about some herbal affinities of nervines. And this is another thing. So there's a whole list, and I shared it on the last one. I'll talk about some of them now. See this list? You guys can see it. I shared this. I've kind of expanded on it a little bit. But of that list, there's certain nervines that are going to be more effective given certain contraindications. For example, wood betony. It's great for headaches. It's great for pain. It's great for GI. Specifically occipital headaches and sore overworked muscles, also useful for nervous stomach or stress headaches with sore scalp muscles. And that was per David Winston. And I'll show you that book in a minute. It's this book. I can't remember if I showed it in this live or the last one, but it's that book. Blue vervain, anxiety, PMS, and menopause. Chamomile, anxiety, stress-induced symptoms such as GI, gastrointestinal issues, and ADHD. Milky oats it's great for people with shattered nerves. That person who is going to startle really easily and jumps at everything, that person might do really great with milky oats being added to their nervine recipe that they're making. Hawthorn is a cardiac herb. It's also great for broken hearts, for grief. In addition, great for like ADHD or the person who's fidgeting, can't quite sit still. Lemon balm that we talked about last week is a mood lifter, also great for Alzheimer's. I forget what it's called and I didn't write it down, but there is a certain thing, sundowner syndrome. Alzheimer's patients can get sundowner syndrome. Hey, Michael's Adventures, thanks for coming. And it's great for that kind of thing. Also stress headaches, ADHD, and seasonal affective disorder. Linden, which has become one of my favorite herbs here recently, is an antidepressant, blood pressure lowering, does work, ADHD, insomnia, and David Winston mentions that it's also a good one for kids. Mimosa, it's not the drink, it's actually a plant. It's a mood lifter, antidepressant. It's another one good for grief or a broken heart, or motherwort is another cardiac tonic. And I put all of these down and kind of got them in order with the thought being that I need to make a spreadsheet. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I need to organize these, mark some boxes or something. Passion flower, great for insomnia due to circular thinking. You know that, if I did this, like I did it this way. Should I have done it this way? Should I have said that? Now I'm going to meet with this person tomorrow. Like this thinking in a circle. Passion flower is really good for just stopping that. Skullcap is another one. It's good for folks with insomnia. due to a busy brain. So it might not be circular thinking, but you're the person who in the middle of the night you wake up and you're making your to-do list for the next day. Anybody got me on that? Because this is my one. I love Skullcap, and it does help. It's also great if anybody has stress with tension that is manifesting as tight neck muscles, sore neck muscles, spasms, tics, restless leg syndrome. You know, if you get the twitches, like I've heard it called, when you get in bed and you want to start kicking your feet, or grinding your teeth while you sleep, Skullcap's great for that. You do, Wendy. You do need to make some tea with that passion flower. Absolutely. St. John's wort, everybody knows. Depression, seasonal affective disorder. I personally would never encourage anybody to use that by themselves. So many contraindications for that herb that it's crazy. So I like it topically for nerve pain. I don't use it for a tea. There's too many other options here. Rose is a a nervine. It's a nootropic, meaning it's good for your brain health. It's a great antidepressant. It is the number one herb for like grief, heartbreak syndrome, like those kinds of things. Catnip. In adults, David Winston uses that with chamomile, hops, or valerian for treating stress-induced GI issues. So if somebody has IBS, IBD, IBC, that would be one to look at. Chamomile would be another one to look at. So chamomile, catnip, see how these are together. Damiana, it's primarily an aphrodisiac, but it's a nervine with a mild antidepressant. And it's also an anxiolytic, meaning it's great for anxiety. So that's another great one. Like if you want to just relax, enjoy your evening, spend time with your significant other and not just zonk out, but you want to sleep well when you do zonk out, that's a good herb. All right. Now, moving on. Shall we talk about Skullcap? All right. Let me share my screen, guys. Hold on. And I hope I don't freeze up. I hate it when that happens. Okay, I think this is the right one. Tell me in the chat if I'm frozen when I go over there. Okay. Okay, I think I'm still moving. Yay! All right. So we are going to talk about Skullcap today. And this herb, there we go. I took a picture of it here. It's actually really small when you look at this plant. And I want to make sure that nobody confuses this with Chinese Skullcap. And that's Skullcap baecolensis. It's a different plant entirely. So just keep in mind, different plant. I love this herb. I've actually been using it for years. It is part of the mint family. And so it likes a lot of water when it grows. And in my monographs, and this is another thing, if you're new here, I encourage everybody to start building your own monographs with the herbs that you're learning. It's a perennial in zone 3 to 9. It's a low upright, typically reaching 2 to 3 feet tall. I would liken it, with all of the research I did and what I saw, to like how lemon balm grows. It kind of reminded me of that a little bit. And it grows naturally in wetlands, marshes, wet meadows, stream banks. And it spreads really well in a moist soil, prefers moist to wet soils, and it likes full sun, but it will grow in partial shade, but it prefers a wet habitat. So I'm thinking, I'm going to try. I'm thinking maybe by the pond I could plant it, but otherwise if it's in the garden bed, I'm just don't know if I could be trusted to water it as much as it might need it. Hey there, Laura, over at Hedgehog's Homestead. Good to see you. So the parts used include the aerial herb, and it contains all kinds of flavonoids and phenolic compounds, volatile oils, everything that basically is the reason why it is unnerving and it's calming and it's a tropho-restorative. So all of that good stuff. And one comment to make that was called out in the literature that I reviewed was that it extracts very well in hot water. And so honestly, I have some tinctures of this, but it is so good in a tea. And it's so good in a tea blend. It blends really well with other things. And would you look at the vitamins and mineral content? It's high in vitamin C, very high in zinc, high in potassium, but it also has all these other things. You would expect any herb that is going to be in the nervine family to have some B vitamins in there, you know, because that's, those are like our nerve vitamins, I guess you could say. So it's got those: vitamin A, iron, manganese, phosphorus, silica, calcium, magnesium, and small amounts of protein. So that's kind of fun. I would encourage everybody, when you're drinking your herbal tea, remember, you're like, drinking your veggies. All right, energetics. It's a cooling, drying, astringent, bitter herb. And it is a nervine, anxiolytic, so anxiety, a sedative, a relaxant, antispasmodic. So if anybody is having problems calming down because they're having some sort of spasmodic, maybe cramps or anything like that, this would be a good herb to use in your tea blend. Anticonvulsant, analgesic, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. Systems affected: nerves, stomach, lungs, kidney. And hold on, I'm going to edit my notes right here because I should put TCM, systems affected. All right, moving on. Traditional uses: nervous fear, nervous exhaustion, nervous system weakness after recent illness. So if somebody's been sick and they're trying to bounce back from that. Restless sleep, cardiac irritability, the person who struggles with high blood pressure that maybe sometimes gets a little cranky. Spasms, lack of focus, that speaks to like an ADHD sort of thing. If you're, I don't know, ADHD means two things to me. It means one thing is you can't just look at one thing without looking at a whole bunch of things, but sometimes you can majorly hyper focus. Hey, Adrian, thank you. But then ADHD people, like I could be listening to one thing and reading a book at the same time, and it completely won't bother me at all. It just, but if I'm my ADHD that is not diagnosed, it's just all over the place. My brain's not taking a pit stop between all the things I need to do. And if I get like that, SCULLCAP is my friend. It'll help me quiet the chatter, I guess you could say, of my to-do list that's going on. Also, it's been historically used for not just restless leg syndrome, but Tourette's, tardive dyskinesia. And according to David Winston, can you tell I used his book a lot for some of this stuff? It may offer some temporary relief for Parkinson's. Also panic disorder, anxiety, but with panic disorder, there was a note here that he used it with motherwort, blue vervain, Chinese polygala, and pulsatilla, which is just some other herbs. It's also known to ease muscle and nerve pain. Now for headaches, it is good for headaches. It would be best for the type of headache where noise, bright light, or any smells just make it worse. And it's a headache where if you can get some rest and go to sleep, you're going to feel better. And this headache might be a frontal headache, or it could be a headache at the base of your brain, more occipital in, location. And the type that might also be accompanied by neck pain and back pain, because remember, it relaxes your muscles a little bit. Hey, Grit and Grace, thank you for coming. So I'm going to take a minute for TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, just some comments here. I like to say this in case anybody's interested, plus saying it helps me remember stuff because I'm studying the TCM stuff. So it moves qi, right? It calms Shen, so it's calming the spirit. It clears heat, resolves fevers, restores stomach function, promotes urination, and in TCM, they have used it as an antidote for poisons. In TCM, they note that the uses are for spasms, nervous tension, shortness of breath, palpitations, cardiac pains. Historically, and this comes TCM, yes, but I even found that historically Native Americans used it to treat rabies. You have rabies, like go to the doctor. I'm not advising anybody to do that. I got to watch what I say sometimes in here, but historically, there it is. Tetanus, neuralgia, paralysis caused by stroke, night sweats, irregular menses, insomnia, low tidal fevers, which just means like low grade fever that's around all the time. Improves appetite, fatigue, treats fatigue, exhaustion, urinary dysfunction. There it is. Poison, snake bite, rashes, and insect bites. And Michael Tierra, which was from, I like to share with you guys the books. Not sure if you can see this. Here we go. The Way of Herbs book. He said that he found great success with using it for patients with drug and alcohol withdrawal symptoms, and says it's one of the most effective herbs for that purpose. So I found that really interesting. Okay, safety considerations. SCULLCAP has a fairly safe profile. However, you need to make sure that you get it from reputable sources. Historically, apparently, there was SCULLCAP that was purchased. People were buying SCULLCAP, but it wasn't SCULLCAP. It was another plant that was hepatotoxic, which means toxic to your liver. So if you're going to be using this, make sure you're growing it yourself and you know that the seed you have is really SCULLCAP, or that you're buying it from a reputable supplier. Put that out there. So I want to try to grow this year, Adrienne. And I don't even know if I have seeds yet. I haven't had a chance to look. So if you have seeds for that seed swap, I would love to have those. If you do, tell me too, so I don't buy them. Preparation type. So a hot infusion, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the components. Oh, you do? Yay! Thank you so much. I'm so excited. Awesome. So I mentioned earlier that the constituents that are in this herb actually extract very well in hot water. So the tea is great. And David Winston noted that he thinks it's more effective fresh, but he did say that others disagreed with him. And I will say I've never had the luxury of having access to fresh SCULLCAP. So I'm really excited to grow my own to see how I like that. But I have definitely had, thank you, Jan. Good to see you. I have definitely had success with just the SCULLCAP tea, both by itself and in a blend. Now, as mentioned in this book, Michael Tierra, for the drug and alcohol withdrawal, he suggested taking 15 to 20 drops of the tincture every hour or two. And as a typical mild sedative blend, he also used equal parts SCULLCAP, hops, and valerian root, taken as a tea 3 times a day, especially a half an hour before bed. All right, and here are my references. I used the adaptogen book I showed you all. I also used this book right here that I've shared on previous books. I don't have the Modern Herbal Dispensatory right here in front of me. I did see there is a little bit about Nervines in this Herbal Gut Health book. I don't know that I pulled anything out of here that I didn't find in the other books, though, but it's another great book. Now, there have been some great clinical trials done on this herb, and I've got those references here in my notes if you want to try to take a screenshot and go look those up. Scutellaria laterifolia extract-based food supplement for sleep management. Single center controlled randomized crossover double-blind clinical trial. Okay, so what you all need to know about all of these words, the single center, multi-center is better, but that's okay. Single center, controlled, the randomized crossover double-blind part. This means this looks on the outside like a really good study. Also, American Botanical Council, SCULLCAP supplement may improve sleep-wake balance in adult men and women with primary insomnia disorders. So you can see that it's really helpful. There's different kinds of insomnia, right? There's people who can't fall to sleep ever. And then there's people who get to sleep but then they wake up and they can't get back to sleep. Skullcap is going to be a great friend to anybody who gets to sleep, but then can't get back to sleep when they wake up in the middle of the night. It could be helpful to that person who maybe can't get to sleep in the first place. But I would say for that person, they're probably going to need to include some other herbs in there. And honestly, I include other herbs. Now, are you guys ready for your herbal recipe of the week? We got 3 minutes. I'm getting there just in time. All right. Oh, Christine, you can't fall asleep? Okay, you need the heavy duty ones. And I don't know, if you've tried valerian root, it might not work for you. That one doesn't necessarily work for me. But, okay. Here is a great recipe for a relaxing herbal tea. And it's going to be equal parts of all of these. And this is actually my own, like this is my blend. I love this tea. In an evening, relaxing. It's 1 part lemon balm, 1 part skullcap, 1 part chamomile, 1 part peppermint, and 1 part lemongrass. Did you guys get that? Heather, 2-day herbal retreat. You're so awesome, Heather. Thank you. Again, I'm going to repeat that recipe one more time. It's an herbal relaxation tea. It tastes amazing. It's 1 part lemon balm, 1 part skullcap, 1 part chamomile, 1 part peppermint, 1 part lemongrass. And real quick to those folks, because we got 2 minutes, guys, those folks who cannot get to sleep, you could try valerian root, Christine. It works great if you're going to the dentist because it also kills your fear, that was in a board game that I bought for my kids it's like an herb fairies board game. And it's one of the little cards. And it was like, it kills your fear. And I'm like, I'm going to have to try that when I go. It worked. And I have a horrible fear of the dentist. None of my dentists like me. Any dentist I see, I'm too scared. For anybody who's looking for a more sedative because you can't get to sleep, you're looking, just as a reminder, at valerian, hops, passion flower, California poppy, nutmeg. Also, ashwagandha is an adaptogen, but it's an adaptogen that also helps to regulate your sleep, your circadian rhythm. So it helps to regulate your sleep cycle. There's some other Chinese ones here, but I won't go into that because I don't think there's anybody here I guess people watching the replay. Ziziphus seed, oyster shell, polygonum vine, Nardostachys jetamonsi. Well, that's Ayurvedic. Valeriana or Tagara, ashwagandha, and nutmeg are both Ayurvedic too. So there's kind of a split. Those are all your sedatives. All right. Any questions before we close this up? I know I talked really fast to make sure I could share all this with you guys in the time that we had. Does anyone have any questions for me? Yes, I love ashwagandha too. And I'm really loving ashwagandha, turmeric, and piper longum, which is just a different kind of black pepper with honey in there. And then you make little balls out of the honey. And then you could just eat the little balls like that. I'm really loving that. I did it with just the ashwagandha and pepper, but I'm like, boy, I really need, like, the turmeric is so good for you. So I put that in there too. And I'm just really loving that. I just eat like 2 of those little balls, I need to do a video on that. I need to do a video on making different kinds of pills. Because there's a couple ways to do it. And I don't like the filled capsules. I don't like that. All right. Thank you everybody for coming. I hope you found this helpful. Next week, we will be chatting more about tonic herbs. And no, I don't grow ashwagandha, but I want to. So we'll see. I planted some seeds. They're in the winter sowing jugs outside. I hope that they take. If not, I'll have to figure something else out. Maybe get some starts or something. All right. Yes, turmeric every day with the black seed. Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you, Jennifer. Yes, everybody remember to hit the thumbs up. Oh, and I want to do something. If you're still here, leave a comment on the video, because next week I'm going to, during the live, I want to do a drawing based on the comments to this video. So I know you've been in the chat, but go leave a comment before you leave so that you're in the drawing for next week. Yep, text me, Wendy. Happy to share. Happy to help you figure out how to, tackle that challenge you mentioned earlier. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run. Bye, everybody. See you next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Central Time next Tuesday. Hope you have a great rest of your week.